Hey everyone, it's Derry from Method. Today we're going to talk about healer ranking in Mythic Plus, and this video was created in cooperation with Imbanane from our EU MDI team and Kana from our Method main raid team. These rankings are current as of the 7th of August. It's important to remember that the information in this video may change as Blizzard completes the final tuning passes before BFA, and even into September as we get closer to the launch of Mythic Plus Keystones. Before we get to the ranking, here's a reminder to like this video if you find it enjoyable, and of course subscribe, enabling notifications so you never miss out on all the exciting videos we have coming your way for BFA. With that out of the way, let's get to the rankings. Holy Priest never really found a place in Legion Mythic Plus, and so far in BFA, this hasn't changed much. The only pros to bringing a Holy Priest are that they do have strong healing throughput and utility with Life Grip, but that's really all at this point. The cons are more obvious. Holy Priest doesn't have any good defensive cooldowns for tanks, they're super squishy, and the lack of ability to contribute meaningful DPS for their group does leave them at the bottom of our rankings. For Holy to be viable, Blizzard does need to rework cooldowns and spells for the entire spec. Resto Shamans were not known for being useful in Legion Mythic Plus, and like Holy Priest, the story hasn't changed too much coming into BFA. That said, Shaman do have more pros than a Priest. They have good survivability and mobility, and they do bring utility to the group in the form of Capacitor Totem and Wind Shear. They have strong cooldowns for burst healing from Ascendance and Spirit Link. Healing Tide Totem is not very impactful for 5-mans, and in most cases burst healing is one of the least important aspects of Mythic healing. The downsides here are once again a lack of defensive cooldowns for tanks. A lack of spot healing means that their rather high DPS capability ends up suffering. While a Resto Shaman is perfectly adequate for lower keys, they really don't hit the mark for pushing high keystones. After spending Legion at the top of the rankings alongside Holy Paladin, the story just isn't the same for Resto Druid, and we're just a short week away from the BFA launch. Druids do retain a few strong pros. They have very strong healing throughput, a solid defensive set for the tank, and of course, the best mobility in the game. That cute bear form grants them strong survivability, but the main issue plaguing Resto Druid right now is they're mana hungry, and in some situations, like fast-paced runs, you may be struggling to stay on top of your remaining mana, making them less viable. Druid lovers, don't lose hope. With a few tuning changes, this spec could easily move back to the top of the list. In Legion, Monk was kinda useless in high-end Mythic Plus. They lacked strong healing throughput and survivability cooldowns. However, Monk has made a strong comeback for BFA. Currently, Monk feels and plays as one of the best healers in Mythic Plus. The main pro for Monk right now is that giga healing throughput for both group and single target healing. Monks also have 2 big cooldowns to survive big boss abilities in fights, while still putting out decent DPS numbers on a single target. It's also worth noting that Monk is by far the best class in Mythic Plus for doing crazy pulls while being able to still DPS and support the tank. You have Ring of Peace and even Tiger's Lust to give your tank mobility, making them key to those large pulls, keeping your tank mobile for damage avoidance. Monk does not have many cons, but it is mana hungry like a Druid, and the biggest con probably is they don't have a legitimate defensive tank cooldown. It's also important to note that the utility that a Mistweaver Monk can bring could also be brought by a Brewmaster, leaving our top 2 healers firmly above Mistweaver at this point. After being a meme for most of Legion, the Mythic Plus Priest community finally has something to celebrate. Disc is incredibly strong right now. The big pros are that you do really strong DPS while still maintaining a high healing output, and that's the reason Disc is so fun to play. You have a good damage prevention with Rapture. Priests have a strong defensive cooldown for the tank with Pain Suppression, and also a group defensive with Barrier, but only if the group stacks together, which can be a pro or con depending on the fight and situation. One of the biggest cons for Disc is that if you can't DPS, you can't heal. So currently the spec does have issues with bursting if everything dies, or boss encounters where you can't attack anything and the group takes a lot of damage that would have otherwise been preventable. Talents like Shadow Covenant and Halo can make bursting weights more manageable. Disc Priest is one of the strongest healers in BFA right now, but with that said, it's hard to compete with who we have sitting at the top. For arguably the second expansion in a row, Holy Paladin is sitting at the top of the Mythic Plus Healer Mountain. There's no way that Paladin could be knocked off from the #1 place right now for Mythic, having the biggest utility toolkit in the group, including arguably the best utility in the game with Blessing. They do a ton of damage, plus spot healing. Paladin survivability also of course remains strong, although not quite as strong as Legion after baseline HP has been lowered. This does make Sacrifice more dangerous to use, as well as Light of the Martyr. Paladins have insane burst healing with Beacon of Virtue, but it could be seen as a con in that you rely on it to do your strong group healing. The only other small con is that Paladins do have a lack of mobility without a speed set or a Cephas, but mobility as a con pales in comparison to their current strength with DPS, healing output, and that utility toolkit. That's it for our Mythic Plus healer rankings. Just a reminder that Blizzard may still make some minor changes before release, or even before Keystones are released, so keep reading those patch notes. We want you to remember that above all else, you should enjoy playing World of Warcraft. Don't be afraid to try new specs, but coming back to the classes and specs that you love most doesn't make you a bad player. What did you think about these rankings? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments below. On behalf of Method, Imbanane, and Kana, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to hit the like button and of course subscribe to not miss out on any of the upcoming Method BFA content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon in our next Mythic Plus video.